All right, we will call this meeting to order. Welcome. This is the Kaysville City Planning Commission on April 24th of 2025. Our agenda has several items tonight. We'll have a conditional use permit, and then we'll have two public hearings for some rezones. And I imagine those are the items that many of you might be here for. Before that, we will ask the commission if there's any conflict of interest.
None.
Okay, seeing none, we will then move to agenda item number 3, which is a conditional use permit for a Major B home occupation located at 135 South, 500 East for Green Peak Landscaping for Jerem Jorgensen.
All right, that is me. Is Jerem here? Jerem, all right. Hi, nice to meet you, Jerem. I'm Mindy. We're pen pals now. Text back and forth and lots of phone calls, so nice to meet you. This agenda item it concerns a conditional use permit that was submitted by Jerem. He resides at 133 South, 500 East. And I just want to clarify up front that it's part of a duplex, which initially caused a little bit of confusion for me. So the correct address is for 133 South, 500 East. This matter is before the Planning Commission due to a resident inquiry received in September of 2024. The resident asked whether or not Green Peak Landscaping was operated by Mr. Jorgensen and if he held a current business license with the city. Our records confirm that he did not have a business license with us. However, he did have a business registered with the Utah Department of Commerce. It did, however, lack a Doppel contractor's license and a city license with us, which both of them are required to do business here in the city. So additionally, a conditional use permit is necessary for operating a type of business from a resident that is under, it's classified as a contractor's business or a subcontractor or handyman. So despite multiple attempts through voicemail and emails, we're finally now here together. I didn't receive an initial response. However, I followed back up with a code enforcement complaint in February of 2025, continuing our code enforcement. On March 6th, we were able to speak, and I gave him 2 weeks to get everything kind of lined up with the city as far as a business license as well as his conditional use permit. And unfortunately, the timeline came and went, and I needed to continue the process of enforcement, so I reached out to Doppel to see what they suggested, and that's when I was able to work with Doppel. They've been really good. It sounds like you've been in contact with Doppel as well and working with them. We understand that he's working with them, and that the city will not issue a business license without the license from Doppel as well as a conditional use permit. So those both need to be in place for him to continue doing business. He's here. His business is Green Peak Landscaping. He's got a very nice website. I've looked at it. It looks like you guys do good work. It's a residential and commercial landscaping business offering HOA maintenance, excavation, not evacuation, seasonal cleanup, sprinkler system installation, and snow removal services, all which require a contractor's license to do those. So in his application, he put that he has one work truck, and if you want to move to his home, it shows, let's see, he has one work truck, and it looks like maybe a trailer parked to the property. I'm not sure if the trailer is for a professional use or if that's a personal.
No, yeah, my yard's a mess. I'm trying to redo it.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, and understand, I think you've been under, when we started this in September, it looks like you've probably pulled out grass and you're working through some things. There's no code enforcement complaints there, so all's good there. There are no employees or customers that will be visiting any current visits at the home. Staff, we have received 2 phone calls from neighbors inquiring about the meeting tonight, just wanting to know what this was about. And then the mayor did receive a text message from a resident concerning potential illegal parking on the road, and I think at one point there was dirt piles on the sidewalk, but they're not there anymore. Just know people are watching, Jerem. They're always watching. Staff recommends approval of this conditional use permit for a major B home occupation at the correct address of 133 South, 500 East for Jerem Jorgensen with any conditions Planning Commission feel are necessary and appropriate as per our city code 1723, which is, actually I think it's 1730-3, which is our conditional use section in our municipal code. The applicant is here for any questions, and I'm happy to answer any questions as well.
Mr. Chairman, Mindy, excuse my ignorance. Help me with the acronym. What's DOPL?
Department of Professional Licensing, so they do all of the doctors, therapists, estheticians,
Engineers. Building inspectors, anything that, engineering, anything
Okay.
that requires a professional license in Utah.
Thank you.
and so it's their certification that you'll do through the state, through them. And once you have that DOPL license and that number, you have that for so many years, you'll have to renew it every once in a while.
I just didn't, I was lost on the acronym.
Okay, sorry about that, yes.
Thanks for catching me up.
Very good. Questions then from, to me, it looks like everything's lined up. We're getting it where it needs to be, so.
May we question the applicant?
Yeah, are you willing to come up and answer a few questions for us? Yeah, come on up here. Question?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Jerem, what happened in March that there was a complaint? Do you know?
I think it was with my truck being parked out front.
Okay,
They saw that it's got badging, and I don't think they liked it parked there. And like I said, my yard, I'm redoing my yard, so it's kind of a mess, so they were probably just getting frustrated.
okay. So the dirt piles that were on the street, was that a yard or was that for use with your landscaping company or for
No,
your yard?
that was me just digging trenches for sprinklers.
And just a correction, it was not in the road, it was just on the sidewalk,
Thank you.
which is still, it can't be there, but it,
Yeah, and Mindy's already addressed this, but just the ability for city enforcement now increases, not decreases. So when you come home tired, you've got to back the trailer in the driveway, not leave it on the street. Make sense?
Yeah.
And if I'm lucky enough to go to work for Green Peak, where do I report to work?
I just meet them at the job.
At the job site?
Yeah.
Okay, so it
Makes
wouldn't
it
come to
easy.
your home?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much.
But I have a question. I can park a trailer, just not extended periods of time, right?
Correct.
I mean, it's not illegal to park a trailer on the street.
you can park a trailer up to 48 hours on your street, so, you know, a camper trailer or whatever, or just even a normal trailer, you can move dirt in and out or whatever, and then you need to move it. So it's not a permanent parking location for the trailer, but looks like on the side of your home is a great place to park it.
You've heard from the expert.
And there is a winter
Also,
parking restriction.
yes.
Was that when they
Yeah,
had
so
issues with the traffic?
I'll just answer some of those questions because this resident brought their concerns to the mayor. The mayor forwarded her concerns to both, Jason, our city manager, our chief of police, and then myself. And so we did discuss, yes, any type of illegal parking. I believe one of the photos that was sent to the mayor showed the vehicle was parked into oncoming traffic. You're supposed to park in the direction of traffic going, the direction that traffic is going. There was also photos that showed the truck and I think the trailer parked out on the street during the winter. And then there were complaints about the condition of the property and the dirt being left. And just as a qualifier, that's really not something that we can do anything about months after the fact. So if there is a complaint that a resident has, the appropriate thing would bring that forward at the time it's occurring. Otherwise, we can't go back and enforce an issue that's no longer an issue, or we can't address the issue if it's, so much time has passed. So I think the concern really was, I think the condition of the property and the parking.
Very good.
So how is the sprinkler installation going?
I finished it. Now it's under the grass.
Yeah, I thought it looked more finished today when I drove by, so,
Yeah. Just had new concrete put in, new steps, new walkway, so.
nice. Well, good
working
job.
on it.
Any other questions?
No, I don't.
All right, I don't think we have any other questions. You can sit back down if you'd like. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see any need personally for any other additional conditions, besides the ones that are built into the city codes.
I agree. The only concern I had was just what they had talked about, trying to bring them into compliance at the top of the page and then down below saying that it looks like it complies. I'm not sure if those are the same two departments, Department of Commerce versus Doppel. I think that's probably the same thing. So is there a disconnect? Is there a need to put a condition in there that says your conditional use permit will not be actually valid until you have submitted full evidence of compliance with the state? That's where I was headed.
So Commissioner Allred, you certainly could do that. That is our process and our practice.
Okay.
So until we receive that Doppel license associated with the applicant, Mindy would not issue the business license. So if you want to do a double measure, you can add that into a motion, but otherwise that's our practice.
Great. Then I don't think it needs to be added in, and I won't make a motion to that. Motion? Are we ready for a motion?
Absolutely.
I'll make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit for the item for Jerem Jorgensen for conditional use permit for Major B home occupation as outlined in the staff report and with any of the with the findings that are listed under item 3 under recommendation.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? All right, we'll call the question then. We'll begin the voting here.
Aye.
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 All right, motion passes.
Jerem, I will finish approval on the conditional use permit and send you a letter. I'll just send it to you through email. So we'll be good to go on that. And then once you hear back from Doppel, please let me know the day you hear back, and we can finish up the business license, and you'll be good to go. All right? Yeah. And you don't have to stay if you don't want to for the rest of the meeting, but you're more than welcome to stay.
All right, our next item of business, item number 4, public hearing for a rezone for 13 West, 950 North from RA to LI, Light Industrial. Just to kind of explain the process, the staff will give us their report. We'll allow the applicant to make some statements. We will then open up the public comment portion of the item. And after that, we'll close that, and I'll kind of explain that when we get to that, but we'll continue with the discussion on the item, so. You have the report,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Thank you, Chair Packer. So this application for a rezone was submitted by the Holland Group to rezone the property located at approximately 13 West, 950 North. The property was previously owned by UDOT
And can you speak more into it? I think people in the back are having a hard time hearing. Thank you.
Property was previously owned by UDOT and was purchased by the Holland Group. The parcel is approximately 3.77 acres in size, and is on the southern side of 950 North. For all rezones, we do have to consider compatibility with both the future land use map and the general plan. As far as the future land use map goes for this particular parcel, it is shown on the map as being intended for commercial use. However, the future land use map, the red color is designated as general commercial. So just a note that that is a differentiation between general commercial versus light industrial. As far as the guiding principles of the general plan, the plan doesn't speak directly to the inclusion or exclusion of commercial uses outside of the city center, so it's considered neutral on that portion. However, as part of the plan, there are goals and objectives as well as implementation measures that are outlined that we take into consideration, so I'd like to go through those now. Firstly, for Chapter 1, which is the chapter on land use and placemaking, there are 2 goals which are considered applicable. The first is Goal 3, which is to improve the commercial profile and operations along the outskirts of community and regional corridors. That speaks particularly to the proximity of the parcel to the West Davis corridor. And the plan specifically states, as the West Davis corridor and Shepherd Lane expansion projects are completed, small neighborhood scale commercial nodes located near highway exits could provide essential services. To that point, underneath that goal, it also says that objective 3.1 is to leverage the West Davis corridor by implementing small-scale commercial opportunities by interchanges. So that again speaks to utilizing the proximity of the corridor in supporting this application. The other goal that speaks in favor would be Goal 7, which states that the city should ensure land uses are compatible and or utilize adequate buffers to enhance compatibility. Because of the commercial nature of this application, as opposed to the residential neighborhoods across 950 North, the adjacent parcel being proposed to be rezoned to RM provides a buffer between the differentiation in uses that wouldn't be there otherwise. Furthermore, Objective 7.1 says that the city should provide land use transitions and development buffers between incompatible land uses. So, as previously mentioned, the RM zoning, if approved, would provide an additional buffer between this particular parcel and both the Farmington City area parcels that are adjacent, as well as the residential area on the opposite side of 950 North. The other chapter that speaks in favor of this application would be Chapter 5 on economic development and prosperity. There is only one goal that speaks in favor of this in that chapter. It's Goal 3, which says we should allow for mixed-use development in identified areas to generate more rooftops and prevent sales leakage. And although this is not coming before the commission as an explicitly mixed-use application, the balancing of both commercial and residential uses between these 2 applications would allow that mixture of uses and further buffer from the existing residences. As far as public comment, a total of 94 public notices were mailed to property owners, and given the unique location of the property, we sent notices within an 800-foot radius of the property as opposed to the normal 500 to allow for further noticing. And a sign was placed on the property on April 18th. At the date of the report, 1 comment had been received. As of the time of this meeting, we have had 6 comments, all speaking in opposition to the proposed rezone, with concerns mainly focusing on traffic and pedestrian safety due to the proximity of nearby elementary schools. There was 1 phone call additionally, but that was primarily asking if the rezones had already been decided or if they were subject to further consideration at the meeting. With that being said, The general plan does not explicitly address how light industrial parcels should be placed throughout the city, but it does refer multiple times to the significance of the West Davis corridor as a key commercial regional corridor and a way to better place commercial nodes throughout the city. While the future land use map does not explicitly support the application, the primary difference between the general commercial and light industrial zones is the flexibility that they can provide, and it's staff's understanding that the applicant applied for light industrial to take advantage of the wider range of potential uses that LI provides as opposed to general commercial, and I think that would ultimately provide a stronger case for their rezone than otherwise. Based on these factors, even with the limited support of the general plan and the differentiation on the future land use map, staff recommends approval of the proposed zone change from RA to LI. The Plan Commission can make a recommendation to City Council to approve or deny based on the limited support available from the 2022 general plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McNamara. Should we hear from the applicant at this time? Is that?
Yeah.
Are you willing to?
Yep.
Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, staff. It's always a pleasure to work with Kaysville City. I feel fortunate to own this property. Can you go back to the land use map, the one we were looking at? About 10 years ago, I stood on the property. Can I control that from up here? Are we that fancy? No.
We got laser pointer if you want.
Just below where the S is. That, yeah, perfect. I was at a very similar public hearing at this very city with this property here. What's that? Parkwood. Parkwood, yeah. You were there. You're a neighbor there. Yeah. And when we bought that, we didn't know what this was going to look like whatsoever. We didn't have a vision. We knew the state was communicating about it. We didn't know how that off-ramp would work. It was still in debate if that would be one. But we went ahead and said, people want to be in this area. Let's move forward. And at the time, the property that I now own was a mink farm. And then UDOT used it as a staging ground, and then they surplused it and auctioned it off. So it has seen quite the recent history, and it has changed hands multiple times. I feel fortunate, like I mentioned earlier, that we have a crucial piece in Kaysville City that is right here adjacent to that on-ramp. I use this exit frequently. I have a lot of friends that live in West Kaysville that always ask me, and I'm not going to say any particular brand names, but they always say, when is that use coming? I do have multiple offers for a gas use, which is most likely going to take up about 1 or 2 acres. I'm holding off for the right one, but we do have those on the table, and that would take up probably 1 to 2 acres of that property. The LI zone or the GC zone in Kaysville City would allow either one of those uses. The rest of it would be very similar to something that I did years and years ago right next to Boondocks. And so we actually had a mixed-use development there, not under the mixed-use zone because it didn't exist yet, but half of that was residential and half of it was the LI zone. The LI zone specifically is a little more adaptable to today's uses. General commercial is a little more retail friendly. I don't see this as a heavy retail location. Convenience, absolutely. Pass by, yes. But I see it as a flex opportunity, and that would be flex office or flex retail. One use that we sold to was a hat company right next to Boondocks. They have a little bit of a storefront for retail. They have their offices there, and then they have a warehousing component to that use. I've found in a lot of our developments that is a highly sought-after use. People want to do all of their use under one umbrella. That's the difference between the GC and me requesting the LI zone. Just wanted to give a little bit of color there. As far as we have provided a traffic study to staff, and I think that is part of the staff, the development agreement as well. Traffic is always a concern for local residents, as it is me. In this case, our traffic study came back and said that that arterial road, which is 950, could handle it. And that exit, I think, is a crucial future use for Kaysville City. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, at this time, we're going to open up the public hearing portion of this item, this agenda item. So we'll allow those who would like to make a statement to come forward and do so here. We'd like when you come up that you state your name, and you have 3 minutes to make any statements you want. For those that might be new to this process, we do not generally engage in conversation at that point. So you can pose questions, but the commission does not answer questions at that point. We don't want to impinge or use up that time that you have. We can answer questions, things like that, after the public hearing portion is over. So feel free to ask them, just expect that we will not respond at that time. And you can pose questions that might be answered by us or by staff or by the applicant. And we'll do our best to sort through all of the issues. At this time, anyone who would like to come up and make any statements on this issue, we welcome you up.
I guess I get to be the first one. My name is Marvin Hill, and I live on 2300 South, which is the road that dead ends into Debbie Drive. So I'm directly across from where this development's going to be happening. I've been in the building industry for over 50 years, so I understand the building industry very well. I'm a licensed plumber, and I'm retired now, so I don't do any more plumbing. But I'm just letting you know, I understand the building aspect of all this, and I understand when somebody buys a piece of property, they want to make their amount of money on it. The thing that really concerns me is it's a residential area with a lot of kids and a lot of traffic that I worry about. And if we put 56 condos or townhomes or whatever it is in that area, you will not have the parking for that. If you go down the road where Farmington is and all that development that they did around Station Park, if you look at there's cars everywhere parked on the road. It's hard, it's congested, and I feel like that getting that many condos or that many homes in a small area like that, unless you make them provide 130 parking spots, not counting the garages or parking places, but at least 130 spots, you're going to have a mess down there. So I just feel like that's way too dense. It's way too much congestion right in that area. And we feel like that if that goes in the way it's proposed, that it's just going to hurt our neighborhood and just cause a big problem, in that area. It's going to be very congested. It's going to be, I just feel like it's just not the right place to put that many places. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Brad Christensen. I live at 2250 South, right there in the Parkwood subdivision. My question, and I heard the gentleman as he was talking, this shows you my attention span, but what I remember is boondocks in a previous development. I don't understand what light industrial is. If there could possibly be some examples of what would be light industrials, you don't have to name those interested, but maybe some examples of what light industrial would be in this property. And then I'll save my comments for the other one when we get to that in the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jackie Knight, and I live on Monarch Drive, so my property backs up to what possibly is going to happen here. So I think it really impacts myself. Yes.
What street again?
Monarch Drive. Monarch Drive.
It's to the south.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think it's going to impact our neighborhood more than any other neighborhood. Our backyards are going to be up against 56 high-rise condos. We're going to have 100 cars stopping and starting and running their engines to warm up. We're going to have trash cans being picked up and moved. We have the LDS church right behind us, and only once a week they pick up their trash cans, and it wakes us up. So I can't imagine what the noise from 56 condos is going to add to our quiet neighborhood. I purchased that property only 2 years ago, and I looked at the zoning. That was really important to me. I came from Nevada, and we had open space, and I thought, wow, I've got some agricultural, low-density property behind me. I don't have to worry about it looking like Farmington Station. They don't look like a neighborhood. They look commercial, they look cold, and our neighborhood is warm and fuzzy. I'm an old lady, and I want it that way. Also, when I come off the highway, when I stop at the stoplight properly behind the stop sign, I cannot see the traffic coming over the bridge that's going south. So that corner is dangerous. You put a service station or whatever is being proposed right there. Excuse me. Did you have a question?
You said going south?
So
when
the
you're coming,
traffic on the highway that's going south comes up over the bridge and intersects with the
so you're going to turn right?
Yes,
at the
you're
top
going
of the
to turn
top
right.
of the off ramp.
Yeah,
and you can't see from the left.
You cannot unless you pull beyond the stop sign.
So you're saying from the west? You can't see
Yes,
traffic from the
yes,
west?
yes.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No,
So I think that's quite dangerous.
Yeah.
Also, there's a walking path there, and there's a path already prepared that goes to that walking path that we're going to have to pass all of that, whatever, traffic from an industrial park. I think the noise pollution and the traffic issue is huge for those of us that live there. I just can't imagine smelling 100 cars starting their motors in the morning when I've had, a little creek behind me and farmland that isn't used. So my concern is the environment and the traffic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm David Stringfellow. I live on just behind 950 North in the Farmington section, just a bit further east of this land area. And I'm sympathetic to the needs of expanding our land use and putting many more houses in certain places. I would just suggest that moving from a agricultural land use and then providing a lot of property rights to the buyer of that land, while flexibility is great and can increase that land value a lot, I would suggest a more appropriate mixed-use type zoning would be better for the community. That would control and give us some comfort in what's going to go in there. You tell people light industrial use, and they're like, what are they going to build on that if we entitle that? The plans will show up. The owners, I hope, are good actors and want a beautiful place here, but taking these few acres and plopping them between two residential areas, at this exit, this intersection of the West Davis corridor, I would just suggest a little more caution than this kind of entitlement. I would reject the application, have them do more of a mixed use kind of zoning, and then work with the community to build something that's more amenable and integrates better with our communities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, what was your name again? If you could state that.
David Stringfellow. I live on 2068 Sharpshooter Court, Farmington, Utah.
Yeah, no, we don't need to know your address, but thank you. I mean, that's for everyone. You know, we do typically ask what city you live in, but if you are uncomfortable sharing your address, please don't feel like you have to.
Hi, my name is Shelley Moore. I live in Farmington, and I'm a school crossing guard at the corner of the corner there right across from the park. And my concern, as I cross kids coming from Hunters Creek subdivision over through the park, and they go up into Endeavor Elementary. My concern for that spot is just if it's more traffic, that we might need a better traffic light there. The one we have right now is kind of confusing as it is, just for what we have. But I'll get cars lined up because we have so much traffic already right there. And if there's more traffic there, I think we need, you know, the green, yellow, and red light to make sure that everybody knows exactly what to do. Because right now we have like a flashing yellow, a strong yellow, and then it flashes red, and it's like, and some of my neighbors weren't quite sure what to do. Like I have people turning right on or left to go to school on a solid red, which they know I'm out there, so I'm stopping traffic, but they're still going. And eventually it turns that blinking red, which means you can stop and then go if it's clear. But it's just kind of a really confusing traffic light. And if we have even more traffic in that spot, it's going to be a little bit scarier, I think, for me and to make sure the kids get across safely. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Spencer Brown, and I live at 30 East 2300 South. Send the cookies there. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Yeah, so I have a property line that backs onto 950 North. I look across at the property out my window. So, in my professional life, I'm a developer and builder of multifamily housing, so I understand Mr. Holland's plight. I've been on the opposite end of these meetings. I would just, the 3.7 acres and the division of that between the light industrial and the residential, I probably have more questions than I have concerns. I think it's possible to do something that works. I think traffic is, it's a busy road already, and anything you develop in this property is, I agree the traffic study probably says the road can handle it. I also am equally concerned about the site triangle of where he would create an entrance into that. They do come off quick when they're getting off onto 950 North. That should be thought through. And then just the division between the light industrial and the residential parking is the most adamant concern. Right now, occasionally we have people that come and park on 950 North. I don't know. It doesn't seem to be restricted. That if the townhomes he's doing aren't adequately parked, I don't know if they have two-car garages, if they have driveways in front of them. With the amount of land space he has, I doubt it. But parking's going to be the big concern with the number of units I think he's trying to get in. Some compromise there is probably would ease my concerns.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cash Knight. I'm in Kaysville, Philly Court. And I've got a similar view to a lot of the people here with a couple of focuses on a few significant items. Traffic report. I would like to see a full traffic report on how this is going to impact the area. Not only do we have 30 acres to the north that is going to be developed for residential housing in the near future, that is going to create hundreds of new homes that will be utilizing this exit as their primary mode of transportation. Coupled with the growing size of Farmington Station, that is going to create immense traffic as that second half gets underway. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of homes, not to mention commercial areas, that will severely impact this road in a very big hurry. Coupled with Shepherd Lane, as that exit moves on to I-15, you are going to have traffic. What a wonderful example, just kidding. You are going to have 3 new developments, new developing areas that is going to far more than quadruple the traffic pattern on here, and I would like to see a full study on how those are going to impact this moving forward, not just in the next 6 months. What is this going to look like in year 4 when that section to the north has been developed, that section to the east has been developed? This is going to be a nightmare, absolutely a nightmare. Second, environmental protection. This is going to create an immense amount of waste. We're talking about a gas station and a large condo complex, which frankly don't fit the area in general, but not to mention you've got that great creek behind that drains directly into federal bird property. And you don't think that's going to have some kind of an impact as they're developing this? If you put a gas station there, God forbid there's a leak of any kind that makes its way into the federal bird refuge. Now it's a significant federal problem. And then, of course, noise and pollution. Those are minor factors to me. The big one is that is a 1-lane road that will be feeding all of the north, all of the west, east, and all of the south. And there will be significant problems as you develop that with that drainage and that federal land right next to it. So no matter how this goes, no matter how this commission decides, you've done an amazing job of zoning Kaysville thus far. I live in the Sunset Equestrian community. I could not be happier. The clear separation between commercial and residential has, as you know, done an unbelievable benefit to our property values. And this would have a negative on that. I think those folks to the south would see a reduction in their property values right away. So no matter how this moves forward, I would strongly request a full environmental impact program with partnership with the federals so that we can make sure that bird land isn't going to be too, destroyed. And then additionally, a full traffic panel as it will relate to the future, not just as it is today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Child, and I live on 2300 South and just right by Debbie Drive. So when you come out of Debbie Drive onto 950, if you're going to turn left, you almost need a traffic light. It's a lot of traffic. I'm for development and for progress, but not that dense. I think that it would be nice to have some homes or homes or apartments, but not that packed in, because I'm concerned about the traffic. There is a lot of traffic that comes off of the West Davis corridor, which we're happy to have. It's a wonderful road, and but it's just a lot of traffic, and I would like to see it developed into a nice area, but I am concerned about the traffic, and already we probably need a light soon there on Debbie Drive to get out of Debbie onto 950. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Thank you.
My name's Kim Anderson. I actually live in Farmington, the Hunters Creek neighborhood there. Thanks for letting me come to a Kaysville meeting. I'm not eloquent. I didn't think I would speak, came in my sweats, just ready to observe, but I love, you count. It sounds like who says what, so I just want my voice heard, I guess, that I'm opposed to the development. And honestly, my reasons are more just selfish, emotional. I love my quiet neighborhood and would love to keep it as much that way as possible. And as was mentioned in some of the comments before, and then as Shelley spoke to, there's that school crossing that's right there, kind of between those two developments. All of our kids in Hunters Creek go to school at Endeavor Elementary, and that makes me nervous. So just wanted to voice my opinion with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Michael Baker. I live in Farmington in the Hunters Creek neighborhood. Just a couple of thoughts. One thing I'm really concerned about, I've been there about 16 years in the same home, which is east of the Latter-day Saint Chapel there. And one thing we've noticed a dramatic increase since the West Davis corridor was finished is just the amount of traffic in that Fox Hunter area, that people coming into and out of that, using that as they think another off-ramp, I guess, but the amount of traffic with a lot of children in that area. And so if they put in a traffic light, it's going to increase the problems for those pedestrians. We had the crossing guard that mentioned the increase in traffic as well. That was something that we were taught by the Planning Commission years ago when they put that in, that there was going to be a safe way for the children to get across there. Well, it's barely safe now. It's not going to be safe in the future if there's much more traffic. And then one of the other things, both Kaysville and Farmington pride themselves on maintaining this environmental friendly, the walking trails, the beautiful area. Again, the sound, the increase in volume of traffic, as well as the danger to the children, and just the destroying of that environment, especially noise and traffic and the pollution of it, is very disconcerting to me. The final thing I would say is that the walking trails, the impact, as the one gentleman said about the environmental impact, they did all of that study before, and it doesn't sound like that's happened here in this situation. So please don't just rubber stamp something that, to me, we're going to regret, both Kaysville and Farmington, and again, the safety. I'm retired law enforcement, and the amount of accidents and potential traffic pedestrian problems are going to be increased dramatically. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to?
Thank you.
Seeing none, we will close the public hearing portion of this agenda item. We will be having a public hearing for the next agenda item, so if there's anything that needs to be said during that period, don't worry. And we will open it up to conversation among the commission.
I have a question for staff. What's the status of the gas station proposal for 200 North and West Davis? Is that?
Maverick, well, Come and Go is still listed as the property owner, but Maverick, as we all know, purchased or acquired Come and Go last year, or was it the year before now? They have listed that for sale and include a restriction on fuel cells. So Maverick is going to sell the property, but will not sell it to someone who's going to be a competitor.
So I guess my question is it proposed still for gas use at 200 North?
No.
Is that no longer?
Well, so.
I mean, is that why we're seeing this?
The zoning would
gas?
allow for it. I don't know if the property sale between Maverick and whoever purchases it will allow it. And based on what they're now maybe under contract with a second group, there will not be a gas station there. I don't think Maverick is interested in putting a gas station there, and they are also not interested in having competition. So they would sell that property with a deed restriction that would not allow fuel cells.
Okay. So
there will not be any fuel cells at 200 North and the West Davis corridor.
Okay.
And I think there's a neighborhood over in West Kaysville, or maybe 2 or 3, that are rejoicing if they are watching, listening.
Yeah. Well, I have 6 or 7 items, but maybe I can just go through them real quickly if the Planning Commission's okay with that. You've answered one of them. looks like the gas station use has moved from 200 north to 950 north. Okay, the traffic counts are massive here and are going to be huge going into the future with all that future development, obviously. So I can see why a gas station use there, but unless it's built well and designed well, that's a use that's going to create just as much heartache and heartburn for the neighbors as the other one. Okay, I think the question I had about the light industrial versus the general commercial has been answered. I still, it bugs me that I think the light industrial concerns me because it does allow for, you know, like item number 3 there, manufacturing. It says light manufacturing, so you're generally not going to get a lot of light, you know, noise, dust, sound, vibration. So I guess I'm okay with that, but it doesn't do much for your tax base. So I guess a concern I had was if the city does rezone this to light industrial and a proposal for development comes in, does the city, I guess what I'm saying is that, Melinda, in your mind, is this something that the city council under a development, are they going to do a development agreement for the whole site or just for the residential? I mean, it's same property owner.
So with the opposition we generally see with the RM applications, we elected to bring that forward with a development agreement so that we would have a presentable project, site plan, et cetera, for the public to see. We did not have that plan for the light industrial portion, but that's certainly something the Planning Commission could propose or that the City Council could propose.
Well, let me elucidate on that then. I would think that under a development agreement, I think there should be addressed on this site for uses that are maybe listed in the zone or conditional uses, but that the city doesn't want. You can't really do that under a zone. You can't do conditional zoning, but under development agreement, you can address it there. So I would think to our council member who's here and to the Planning Commission, it's something we ought to think about, is recommending uses that the Planning Commission and the public and the staff may think are questionable there could be eliminated via the development agreement tool. Because I guess we don't have a better zone option, but it still bothers me a little bit. That seems to be very much a retail site more than anything else. And I kind of lament gas going in there because gas is just, we need it. Obviously, the traveling public does, but there's so much concern that I have about how gas station is designed, the site plan. There's so much detail that's needed to limit impacts on the neighbors. Okay, do we have a plan? Mr., I'm sorry, what's your name again? Phil. Oh, Phil, you're Phil Holland. Okay, Phil, excuse me. We have met before. Sorry, I didn't know your name. Here's one thing that concerns me is that we don't have a site plan. We don't have a layout to present to the Planning Commission and the city residents tonight on, well, what's proposed? We've talked about, you know, the condos, but what's the commercial layout? And it is a little awkward, you know, a gas station next door to the condos, it doesn't flow that well. So again, it's all in the design, I think, layout, lighting, landscaping, buffers. I mean, there's just so much to be considered there. My experience working with cities has been that usually you don't recommend on a rezone until you have a site plan that you can base your decision on. Without that commercial part being shown, I have some real concerns about wanting to make a recommendation without seeing how those are going to work together. Yes. Do you have a layout?
So, yeah, let me kind of...
You understand where I'm coming from?
Yes, let me talk through maybe the first thing you mentioned, which is if we go back to the zone itself, if you take both the GCs, every commercial zone we have in Kaysville is very similar.
Yeah.
Very similar.
Yeah. unfortunately.
Exactly. So in one section of it, we don't have a specific use. So we've talked a lot about convenience store. That's a great spot for a convenience store
Yeah,
from
it
a
is.
public and a convenience
No
store
question,
perspective.
yeah.
I don't know if one will go there or not. So that's the hard part, is if I had a site plan and we talked about it, then all of a sudden the city is saying, okay, there's a convenience store on the table, and they're trying to get a site approved for a convenience store. I'm not doing that because I don't 100% know if that is going to be the use. And so we've asked for the LI zone. I appreciate what you said earlier. Where was that? So this is, and sometimes when we hear industrial, we hear manufacturing. This is not manufacturing site whatsoever. So, and I had a question on your question, which is, if a planning commission made a recommendation, could they eliminate a use that is shown on, or recommend to the city council that they eliminate that?
Yes, they could, but that would, it's a separate process. That's be a text amendment, and that requires a completely different path to remove items from the zone. But the city, through a development agreement, could negotiate uses not to be included on the site.
Yeah.
But without seeing a layout, again, I think we're flying blind a little bit. So I'm hesitant to vote on a proposal without knowing a little bit more about this property.
Okay, so yeah, this use, now I own 6.5 acres behind Taco Bell. And the issue we had there is I've got the full zone in place and everything's hunky-dory, and we're waiting for those specific uses that were on that, that zoning. And we're waiting, and we're waiting, and we're waiting. What I did not want to do on this is be tied to a specific use. So if I provided you, hey, this is, say, a 32,000 square foot light industrial flex building, which we have those all over the town. If I provided that, then that would mean that that's actually what I'm trying to do. But I don't know what I'm trying to do yet. So I'm waiting for the market to decide, because West Davis Corridor is new to all of us, including commercial users. You know, I've had that on the market for about 6 months. You'd be surprised, Walmart was looking at it. I mean, we don't know what's going to go there. We can't force the demand from my perspective. And so that's the hard part of saying, here's a development agreement in place that calls out the specific use, because I don't have those commercial uses yet.
Yeah. And I've been talking to developers for 30 years, so I know exactly where you're at. But from a neighbor's perspective and a resident perspective, I'm kind of wearing both residential hat and my professional hat, and I'm hesitant. So if you were to come in and propose a building like we have down by Barnes Park, is that really what we should have there? So I guess what I'm saying is not that you're proposing a specific name, this is going to be XYZ convenience store with gas, but just a layout showing the entire acreage of this is, you know, a box with a parking lot and then residential, so that we get more of a feel for it. That's just the path that I'm familiar with. I'm not saying this is right or wrong. I'm just saying it gives me a little more comfort as a planning commissioner to feel like, yeah, this is the right thing, because I personally don't think a box like we have by Boondocks, those kind of office building, those commercial light retail, light resident or manufacturing is a good use there. I don't. I think it's a retail site. I really do.
So let me just kind of speak to that, because this is very interesting that's happened to commercial real estate over the last 5 years. So if you look at what's next to Boondocks, you know, there's a basketball shoot 360. There's an office, kind of a headhunter type use.
Pickleball.
There's a pickleball.
Yeah.
Those are the uses. Now, light industrial, as goofy as that sounds, that is what the modern day commercial uses are. So what fits with Kaysville City Zone is the light industrial. It is a little awkward in the fact that it does allow, where were we on that one? You pointed it out earlier, it was up top, I think on the allowed uses, number 3. Yeah, I am not proposing a manufacturing.
Right.
This is more what is apt or closely related to what the demand is for commercial real estate today, which are those uses. So, yes, GG Pip's another one, which is the one I mentioned earlier. We have commercial uses, they're not manufacturing, they're more taekwondo. They're that type of use, sporting uses.
Yeah.
And what they need is that span.
A kid's play place, like you said.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what this site is.
Okay. Thank you I hope that's helpful to everybody. I don't mean to belabor it, but I think it's good to have an idea of what could go there, because what the traveling public may automatically want is a gas station there, because everybody would use it. We'd all use it even though we live by it. We would. We can say, I'll never go to that gas station because it's in my backyard, but that's not really what human behavior does. The other question I had was, it's more about the layout, landscape buffers and things like that, I think, which are more at staff level, but I'm concerned about, again, the intensity of the use, whatever gets built there, height, lighting especially, trees take a long time to grow and mature to kind of soften whatever goes in. And then I think you've answered the question about the flexibility in the LI zone was a strong consideration. I always think the developer's going to go there. In fact, most planning staff, they'll push developers towards something that helps them if it's a good use. And we've addressed the development. Okay, one big concern I had, and maybe staff can help me with this, is there was a real lengthy traffic study that was most of the 101 pages in the staff backup. And I don't know how much you guys read through that. I went through it and kind of went down to conclusions, because that's what most people do when you have 60 pages of graphs and charts and everything else. What I really want to know is, does Kaysville own the north half of the street and Farmington the south half? Who is the owner of 950? Is it Farmington all the way down?
No, yeah, so, first of all, to the gal who said she's a crossing guard in this traffic signal here, Farmington City owns that traffic signal, so if you want to talk to them about the weird. Right here?
Yeah, right there.
Okay. If you want to, okay, well, now maybe I might not have asked the right question to our Public Works Director. But Farmington City owns this traffic signal.
Right.
I can inquire about this, whether it's ours or not, but I believe it is Farmington's, because the boundary really ends here. So this is where Farmington, I believe, owns the road all the way from this
Both sides.
property of the where this church and these residences.
They own the full right-of-way, right? You're saying to that point, they own the
Yes,
full right-of-way.
I believe so. And
Not
then
not to the midline of the road.
correct. And then we own from, Kaysville City owns from here to
Okay.
wherever the UDOT right-of-way is on the interchange.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful to know, because, I wanted to speak up earlier when people were bringing up this issue about kids crossing, because that's a huge concern of mine too. I live on 50 East, and so there's a ton of kids that walk past my house, and I'm assuming there's a ton that walk through Parkwood to get to the school. And do they go up through the park there? Is that where a lot of them go, right there? They do? They go up through the park? Okay, so that's why they're coming on my street, because I live just, my house is right there. And so I'm just trying to figure out, how do we get people across there? And so we need to know who's in charge of getting traffic calming, because what I've heard from 2 or 3 people, and I totally agree, is there is so much traffic that's going to be generated by this dozens and dozens of acres of this development. And Farmington really hit it out of the park when they got this interchange, for their development out here, because now it allows for this massive employment and massive traffic area. So 950 is going to get far, far worse than it is now in terms of average daily traffic, ADT, and the speed And I just think it's incredible. I wouldn't want my kids to walk across 950 for anything, and I just don't see it safe enough, and I don't see it going to be safe enough in the future. So, not to editorialize, then the other part is, Melinda, do you know if there is any, I can't imagine there would be, but tell me the city does not have a traffic light proposed for the entrance in and out of this proposed acreage between Devi. Is there going to be a light at Devi? I can't imagine it because it's so close to the interchange. That's why I would say, you know, I've read countless traffic studies, but that would be, I think, insane to even think of allowing that. And I don't think UDOT would allow that to happen either. But it is a question. Are we going to have another light? Most of us would think, yeah, another light would be great to slow that traffic down. But there are all sorts of scientific studies and the AASHTO standards. So that's a big question I have as a planning commissioner and as a neighbor. What is the plan for Devi? We're going to be lining up the entrance to this commercial area and the residential at Devi, correct?
Sorry, ask that again.
Well, again, because we don't have a site plan for the whole thing, I'm seeing an entrance into the condos from 950 lining up with Devi.
Yes, that. Yes. So.
Right?
Any.
Okay, so if that happens, my question is there going to be a light at Devi? And I doubt there will be because it won't meet all the warrants and everything. That's all the more reason that I'm concerned about slowing traffic down, and we've got to calm the traffic down right there, because if they're I'm not seeing the crosswalk there. Do we have a big crosswalk there at 22? At 2215 we do?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can see
That's my neighborhood, but I have so many questions that are coming. A lot of it has nothing to do with Kaysville. It has everything to do with Farmington, and we can't control what they do. But this site and how traffic is handled is critical. So I've gone through my 6 or 7. Please, everybody, forgive me for being so detailed here, but anyway, I'm done. I think we need to really look at these carefully before we go further. And Phil, it's not because I don't like the use there. I think it's a natural use there.
No, these are important questions.
Yeah.
And traffic is a hard thing mentally for all of us. We've all been in traffic. I have traffic in my area. We all have traffic.
Yeah.
One thing that we did very first after I bought this property was to make sure my traffic engineer was all over this. I knew I'd have a meeting just like this. So we could arbitrarily talk about that there's heavy traffic, and there's traffic, and there will be more. They look, as you know, they look at traffic patterns generated by this property. And what he is claiming, and he does look at, okay, how many trips are being generated now? How many, this is all written in our report. Right. How many will be in 5 years? How many in 10?
Right.
And
that's what a good study does.
Yeah.
It has to look farther down the road, pardon the pun.
And I know traffic's mentally an issue for all of us, and so we go back to the science of traffic, which is possibly the most boring science to me. And that report spells everything that we're talking about out. And so it talks about Divide Drive. By the way, she's still alive, but she'd be turning in her grave if she knew you were calling her Debbie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but that's funny. It is Divide.
Oh.
So she's a person that exists. That name got changed, but.
Who are you referring to?
A sales agent in that neighborhood changed the name of that street to his wife's name, Divide.
Oh, okay.
Great.
Great. Now.
Yeah.
You just rewired.
Not trying to correct anybody.
No. It's good to know.
So, yes, I'm going to applaud also. Yes, traffic is something that we all get behind and we say, what is going to happen? The good news is is I knew that we'd have to be doing this, and so we did provide city staff with that report. Public Works and the city engineer have scrutinized it. They've asked important questions, and our traffic engineer has made sure that it was clear on every bit of that. So I just want to be clear. Yes, it is something that is absolutely important to us. This site, according to that, does not provide the issue that we're talking about.
Right.
There's generally another issue, but with 950, there's local streets, there's arterial streets. I'm kind of just talking generally. This is an arterial road, and I believe most of 950 is owned by Farmington. But yeah, the plan has always been for that road to handle a large amount of traffic.
Yeah.
Just a comment, but
Yeah.
this is all written in the traffic report.
Yeah, and who did your traffic report? Was it Focus Engineering?
Yes.
And who specifically done it?
Jason Watson.
I don't know Jason, okay. No, I have no problem with the report, but I just wonder, has that report been vetted with Kaysville? Does the Public Works Director, the city traffic engineer, city civil engineer, do they have any commentary on this project as it relates to the report? Because obviously the report is going to say, this 6 or 7, 8 acres here, no, it's not going to make the street fail. Of course not. That road is designed for an enormous amount of traffic that's not there now. That's not the issue. The issue is, how do the humans interact with that road going forward? And this property simply just alerts us to, oh, now what? So anyway, I apologize for taking so much time. Thank you for answering those questions, and that's it for me. I'll turn it over to everybody else.
So Commissioner, I will let you know that, so yes, our Public Works Director, who's a PE, and then our city engineer, who's also a PE because he's an engineer, they have reviewed this. They also sent this to Hales Engineering to do the review for us, since neither of our engineers are traffic engineers. And so we've been working with Hales Engineering, and
Have we heard back from them?
yeah, so this
Did I miss
analysis that was in the report is the second version. The applicant brought back a version that addressed questions, and Hales actually has not completed the review of this second revision
Iteration.
that was submitted last week, but they are
Okay.
reviewing it now. And
Yeah, I
we
know
would
the guys at Hales
anticipate-
pretty well, yeah.
Yeah, we would anticipate the two things, I guess. One, the review would be completed prior to this going to City Council. But secondly, there were no mitigation measures proposed in the traffic analysis. So we are not anticipating that would change based on this updated TIA. If it does, that's something that we would address, and we would add anything into the development agreement that may need to be
Thank
required.
you. That's an excellent answer. That really encapsulates concerns. This project alone does not require professional engineering recommendation to say you need to do anything, because it's mostly away from this site. That's the issue. So, and I do know the Hales guys quite a bit. I've worked with them extensively, so I have a lot of trust in their judgment.
And while we're on that, also my understanding is that, so one of the challenges, speaking with traffic, right, is when you do have changing entities or ownerships. So right here within this period, right, or this area, we have Farmington City, we have Kaysville City, and then we have UDOT. My understanding is that UDOT has, with the purchase of the property, and Mr. Holland could correct me if I am wrong on this, but that they stated you cannot have an ingress egress here to align with Sunset because they felt like that was too close to the interchange.
Too close.
Okay, so that is correct. So that leaves, you know, the ingress egress, so we would align to Divide Drive. You do want to have those roads lined up to prevent those, or to have that be safer so you don't have conflicting turns with offset roads. when we get to my item on the next one, we can talk a little bit more, but there is a second ingress egress proposed for the townhomes right around here. And so I think that's one of the things that Hells was just going to look at once more, is how that would function and if there would be too much conflict from a left here and a left there. So there is a chance on this here that they could come back and say it needs to be limited to a right in, right out.
Yeah.
But I don't know yet what that is. And we had some delays with this review. So we knew we could address that before this goes to to City Council. And again, with the initial results, we were comfortable enough bringing this to Planning Commission without having that final analysis done, knowing that it would be done by the time this goes to City Council.
Understood. Thank you.
So staff, Linda, is there an environmental impact study required for this, even at a later stage?
No, there's not. We would require, prior to the subdivision or with the subdivision process, a geotech study.
Right.
That would be the only environmental component. That's just not something that Kaysville does or has ever done. So the federal government has different requirements, and because a lot of the funding that comes through UDOT is federal funding, they do have to follow that environmental impact, the NEPA process. That's not something that cities do. So that's primarily, right, your state roads that would do that.
And in terms of the stream there, the creek, just an FYI to the public, there's what's called a SWIP required on anything over an acre. And so, Phil knows about this. It's an environmental plan that any property developer has to submit to the city that has certain requirements that keeps dust down, it keeps stuff from going into the stream. It's very rigid, it's highly regulated by the state, and cities do participate in making sure that that stuff is implemented on the site to protect that stream. Again, it's called a stormwater protection plan, a SWIP. Anybody else who knows about it can add something in there if I haven't said enough, but there will be a SWIP.
That's something that is required through the subdivision and the construction process. Yep. So it's a temporary mitigation measure to ensure that the stormways are protected from pollution that could come through, runoff from dirt that gets disturbed and anything like that.
Yeah,
so,
and dust control is a big one
correct.
now. Fugitive dust. So you can't just go out and scrape the dirt all day long. You have to go out and spray to keep that dust down. And so this SWIP plan, which is through NEPA processes, again, is very important, but it is designed to mitigate any potential negative impacts of the construction of this site on that stream and on the neighborhood.
I think you asked most of my questions, which is good. I think one of my biggest concerns kind of reflected what a lot of the public comment mentioned, and that was the industrial nature of it. I appreciate your comments kind of trying to explain that. It made me feel a little bit better. I still am a little bit worried. We talked about maybe having some kind of a plan laid out or something, but as I look at the traffic, I think that's going to be an issue no matter what. I mean, this piece of property is not going to make or break, the issue. So while it's something that does need to be looked at, I don't know that it applies much to the decision-making process for me in whether or not to recommend this.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Yes, one other comment I had. I heard some concerns expressed about parking and congestion and that kind of thing. And I'd like to just throw out for your consideration. Just my professional experience has been somewhat the opposite of some of the things that were said. One thing to remember about traffic is that the wider the road and the straighter the road, the more dangerous the road. So the fact that this is a big wide road is what makes it dangerous, because people go faster. The more space you have, they go faster. Cars parking, ideally, and I'm serious, I met with, 28 years ago, 30 years ago, I met with the preeminent traffic engineer who went rogue and kind of turned traffic engineering upside down. And he came out to a city I worked in. I worked in Centerville for about 10 years. And this guy walked right out in the middle of a busy road, and I really thought he was crazy. He walked right out in the middle of a busy intersection and said, watch, cars will stop, they'll see him. And he was right. And he said, one thing to remember is, if you want your road to be safer, make it narrower. If you want your road to be safer, please limit your parking and have as much parking along the street as you can. And I thought, what's he doing? He's crazy. But he's not. If you go to my street, 50 East, because it's engineered at a 55-foot wide right-of-way instead of a 48 or a 45, the wider that street, the faster cars will go. But at my house, if my neighbor across the street from me and I both park on the street overnight, guess how much slower the traffic goes? It's incredible. People go up 50 East from was it Divide? They hit that turn there and they blast up to Shepherd Lane and they do 40 miles an hour, 45 right in front of my house. Why? Because it's a wide street and nobody ever parks on it. But that street is public property. We own it. We can park on it. And the more we park on our streets, the more we slow traffic down. Now, it's not 1,000,000% perfect. Sometimes a kid will dart out. But generally speaking, cars will slow down. Psychologically, we all slow down as we're driving if there's a car parked on each side of the street and that pavement is narrower. So when you say we shouldn't have parking out on the street, absolutely the opposite is true. If we want it to be safer, that's what we do. In terms of parking, we are addicted to over-parking in our country. People adapt. We pave too much. We've created massive urban heat islands. Those apartments, they don't need 4 stalls per dwelling. They've got 2 in the garage, and they should have 2 in their driveway. Parking on their private lanes should be encouraged. But we shouldn't create artificial parking lots or follow a set standard for the number of stalls. I was personally involved in more than one development where an apartment was parked at less than 1 stall for each apartment. And these were $800,000 condos. They didn't even have 2 parking stalls, okay? They just had 2 inside their garage, and then they had a little narrow private street. So guess what? Nobody ever went zipping around that little development. So think about that. I know what I'm talking about, and if you trust me and you think about it, it's counterintuitive. Narrower streets, parking on the street slows things down. We can't talk out of both sides of our mouths and say we want things to be safer if we're not willing to implement and change our thinking about what actually makes it safer. We don't want too much parking. People make decisions when parking is limited. And I could go on and on about it and give you more specific examples, but trust me. If it's crowded at a restaurant at noon every day, people will come at 11:30. They'll come at 12:30. They'll come at 1 instead of building a great big parking lot that's super expensive to install, super expensive to maintain, and leaches chemicals into our soil. It's a science and an art. So just something to think about. Don't overpark stuff. Our churches, for example, that Hunters Creek, I used to go to church there. It's way overparked. So is Quail Creek, so is Quail Crossing. They're overparked. Way overparked. Anyway, enough editorializing. I'm good at it, but I know a lot of this stuff because I work with it, so forgive me.
Yeah, let's, if we refocus here on the rezone, other thoughts, discussion, questions?
Mr. Chairman, the agenda calls for public hearing on both of these,
Yes.
but is it a motion in order, or is tonight the night for public hearing only?
A motion would be appropriate at this time if we feel that it's time.
I'd like to make a motion. Unless, Mr. Chairman, are we ready for that? Do we have more discussion at the commission level?
I personally do not. If any commissioner has.
Welcome your motion. We can have discussion after a second.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we table, or excuse me, that we continue this item to the next available meeting. I'm a little uncomfortable with not having more planning commissioners here tonight. I'd like to see what other planning commissioners have to say. We've gotten a lot of good public input tonight. I'd like for the developer to maybe come back with a sketch and at the next meeting and allow the neighbors to come back out and maybe talk about some of these items more, see if that's something that we can all get comfortable with in terms of perhaps including uses we don't want to see on that property based on the zone. I don't know about everybody else's discomfort, but that's kind of how I'm feeling. So my motion is to continue the item for further discussion with additional planning commissioners here.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Okay. Fails. No second.
I'll second that motion.
Oh, okay.
Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, so that these good citizens of Kaysville and Farmington can know they've been heard and not feel like they need to come to yet another meeting, let me summarize, and then if I heard correctly, I understand the concerns regarding parking. I appreciate the detail that was in staff's recommendation that we're, and I'm jumping between both approvals. But we have 124 parking spaces anticipated for the townhome development. I don't see a great solution for what this body can do regarding the crossing, particularly at the park. I transit this road. I see that as more of a concern, particularly as the Shepherd Lane on and off ramp develops. That's an issue for Farmington, certainly. I understand the need and examples for LID uses. What I'm hearing from the developer is, I don't know whether this is going to be, I'm going to sell this to Crystal and it's going to be a Maverick, or GG PIP 2 and it's going to be LID. You'd like to have the entitlements done and then finalize your buyers. What we've heard the commission express is a desire to have more detail like we do on the residential section. On the residential section, I can see what's planned, plotted, appearance. And I recognize that's a chicken and egg problem for you, but it's a real concern. Again, the crossing guard, that's public safety is always a significant concern. We haven't heard the final word on traffic, but staff has reviewed it. And I don't know that we're going to learn a lot more there. Perhaps if the applicant cements one or more potential users, that we'd be able to understand or see a layout or a plan, because that commercial user or buyer is going to have desires, requirements, may or may not want to surrender land for a decel lane, et cetera. So lots to consider. I seconded the motion, but I would also be in favor of moving forward with the understanding that we have the proper controls on what's then proposed in either GC or LID for the parcel which touches 950 North.
Thank you. Are there any other thoughts on the proposal that we have on the motion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Since I made the motion, and I'm not super emotional about it, maybe I could clarify if the planning commission's okay with it, I'll clarify the reason other than what I stated to bring it back forward. Maybe we could clarify the motion would be to continue this to answer specific questions, and let me give a few of those. To get I would like to see the staff come back to answer specific questions about what can be done through a development agreement via the uses that we may be concerned about. And specifically would like staff did a great job, by the way, on this report. I thought it was very, very thorough. In this last big paragraph, though, I think it would be good to tweeze out a little bit, if we could, any staff, to ask the staff to give a firm recommendation on why. There seems to be some hesitation about the zoning a little bit and the general plan. If we could get the staff to state if they have any concerns about the LI zone based on the uses and the discussion tonight. 2, traffic or pedestrian crossing concerns that the Planning Commission and the residents have expressed tonight as it relates to jurisdiction over the street at these crossing locations, specifically, is it Devy? Devy, at Devy, and a clarification on a potential second egress to the residential, because I think that's really critical on a street like this. Usually they like to limit access points, but in this one I think it might actually be very beneficial to have more than one. So access points, pedestrian issues, a statement from Hales to get Hales to finish up any concerns they may have or recommendations they have based on what Focus has done. Let's see, what else do we bring up? Parking concerns. Well, I guess we're going to talk about that at the next one.
Some of our conversation is trickling into the next
Yep.
agenda item. It's been hard to keep them separate.
I just say on those, let's continue and ask staff to come back and address some of those issues a little more firmly on the concerns that have been expressed tonight. And then could we, Melinda, staff, is it allowable for us to recommend through our motion that we not only continue the item, but could we continue the hearing? The hearing's been closed.
I mean, you
Okay.
opened the public hearing and you have closed the public hearing.
Okay. All right. I was going to suggest that we allow public comment again next time this comes back, but they can get a copy of the staff report and send in their concerns. So, okay. That's just for clarification. If the Planning Commission is willing to consider those, fine. If not, move forward on the motion.
Yeah, I understand some of those concerns and feel like it wouldn't be a bad thing to continue. I'm also about at the point it's kind of either way, that we could move forward, knowing that this is only a recommendation to the city council, but.
Yeah.
um,
Oh, a potential layout, I think that was the other thing.
mm.
Just some bubbles, potential layout, the access, the pedestrian crossing, those things. Don't have to be perfect on them, the staff got notes.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, I was sort of hesitant about the idea of light industrial in this location, but I get what Mr. Holland is referring to as far as the development and not knowing quite what might go into that space. However, at the same time, if it's sold, no matter what your intentions might be, if the property's sold to another, we don't know what they sort of have, that potential buyer has sort of full range if there isn't a development agreement on the property to limit what might go into that space. So I also would like additional information if possible before making such a decision, or else maybe going to a different zone. So just my thoughts.
Well, we have a motion and a second, so we will call for a vote on that. A motion to continue this agenda item at a future meeting. I would assume our next meeting in 2 weeks.
Is that possible?
Was that, Mr. Sponsor, was that the intent of your motion at our next meeting, or as appropriate
Or
as
as-
Mr. Holland has
That's a
additional
good
information?
clarification, yeah.
I'll just make it open-ended, continue to next available meeting. The next available meeting that's really between the developer, the applicant and staff. I don't know what's on the next meeting, but
Could be as early as May 8th, could be another.
yes,
day.
yep.
Thank you.
The next appropriately available meeting as soon as possible. Not trying to throw a delay wrench, just some clarifications to feel comfortable about making a recommendation.
Look at Mindy
Okay.
to see if she's.
Call for the question.
Commissioner Shepard, we'll start with you.
Aye.
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 Aye. So the agenda item is continued. We will move then on to agenda item number 5. A rezone for property at 16 East, 950 North from RA Agricultural Residential to RM Multiple Family Residential District.
Well, this is a bit of a twist because usually commercial rezones don't have much opposition. However, this is for the property right east of the parcel we were just talking about. Same owner as we discussed earlier. And this rezone is to go from the RA over to RM. And I'm sorry, I think there might be some information missing from this slide, but this is just an aerial of the property, which we've been looking at the area quite a bit on this other item. So again, this is on the east side of the subject parcel we were just speaking of, on the south side of 950 North, and just east of that interchange at 950 North and West Davis corridor. This zoning map just shows the area zoning. I've got the property circled in red that we're speaking about, and the staff report did spell out the zoning in Farmington City, which I think was agriculture, what was that called? Agriculture estates. So AE is the zoning primarily in Farmington City to the south. To the north of that, we have R1LD, which averages out to be half-acre lots across the project, and then some R120. And then, of course, to the west, we have the residential, or excuse me, the heavy agriculture zone, and most of that, I believe, is owned by the Central Davis Sewer Improvement District. So I'm going to take through a number of slides like Anne did with our last item. One of the first things we look to when we're talking about land use is what does our rezones, what does the future land use map show this being used as? And so this has been indicated to be general commercial, and the 2022 general plan is the most current plan that we have. So this was adopted initially in July of 22. And so again, this future land use map does indicate that both properties in this area would be utilized as general commercial. There was some discussion, as we mentioned with the applicant, but before making an application on this, as to could we do a mixed use project? Would the city be open to having some type of a medium density product here with the townhomes? And the conclusion really was because the mixed use zone requires that you bring forward a complete application, and there were unknowns with at least the commercial users that we would separate out the parcels and have the applications come in independently from each other. So I'll go next through the general plan. The general plan has 5 umbrella components that kind of is the overarching, I guess, foundation for the rest of the plan. And one of those 5 guiding principles is that the community came forward and said we'd like to see to provide diverse housing options. And so that's going to be, economic needs, lifestyle, life cycle, and so this definitely fits underneath that. The majority of Kaysville's residential property is zoned single family. And I looked at these figures the other day. 92%, I believe it's 92% of the city is zoned residential. But of that 92%, I think we're about 85% that is single family. So there really is not a lot of variety as far as the type of housing that's out there. So there were 2 chapters in the general plan that had goals and objectives that were relevant to this particular application. So the land use and placemaking plan is chapter 1. That's also where the future land use map is located. But goal 8 at the end of the chapter says that we would look to provide a range of housing options and price points that help ensure Kaysville is an affordable place to live. In fact, unrelated, but I received an email that came in through our public comment today about a family who's from Kaysville wanting to establish living here, but can't find anything that fits their budget, which would be about $400,000. So that said, there are a lot of people that grew up here but can't really afford to come back and live here. So there was an objective that, and the implementation measure that corresponded with this goal that just said that we would allow and encourage new residential development models that meet future needs of the community. The other chapter that's relevant to this is chapter 3, which are housing and neighborhoods chapter. And those who are on the commission have probably heard this before, but over the course of the last, let's say 10 years, the state legislature has really focused on trying to bolster the amount of moderate income housing priced products that are out in, I guess, the whole state. So as part of those requirements, they added into general plans a requirement to have cities of a certain size have to have a moderate income housing plan. That's located in this chapter 3. Every year we have to provide a report to the state on whether or not we have met the goals and objectives in here and the applications that have come through and the status of the decisions on those applications. So from that standpoint, I do weight the information and goals and objectives in chapter 3 as a higher priority, because we are essentially reporting back to the state. And if we were found to be non-compliant, there could be some pretty significant consequences, including the state taking away funding availability for us or funds that we already have. And that's not something, obviously, that we would like to see happen. So that said, there were the goal 1 in chapter 3 that just says that we would provide a full range of housing opportunities to meet economic, lifestyle, life cycle needs and expectations for residents. So this is very similar to the guiding principle and the goal that was outlined in chapter 1. But one of the things that is very specific to the moderate income housing plan is that we would rezone for densities necessary to facilitate the production of moderate income housing. And part of that, we had to have the implementation measures, and implementation measure C said specifically that if there is an application that comes in and doesn't necessarily meet that first precursory look of does it match the future land use map, that we would give strong consideration of approval to the application. So that said, this fits in that category, and we're definitely looking at giving that strong consideration. So with that, I'll go through some of the particulars of this project, which, as I mentioned earlier, based on the opposition we generally receive on RM rezones, the decision to move forward with a development agreement and a site plan was made. So this is not something that is required, but it's something the applicant was amenable to. So this site plan just shows the layout of the property that they're proposing to put the RM townhomes on, which is 3.77 acres. I'll talk about parking a little bit with this slide, but as I mentioned earlier, we have this road here. This would be a public road. Everything else in here would be internal roads, which is also the reason why we're proposing this be a PRUD overlay, because that's the mechanism for allowing private roads within the city. So the 56 units are proposed. Each of those units does have a 2-car garage and the availability to park likely 2 additional cars in each driveway. So there's 12 guest parking stalls that are proposed for a total of 236 stalls. So our code would only require, I think it was 96 stalls for this project. So the developer is bringing forward, I think, a very rich parking with this project. And I mean, speaking to earlier, I would be surprised if there was much overflow onto 950 North. That's always a possibility. But based on the amount of parking provided within the project, hopefully that wouldn't be much of a concern. The applicant is asking for a few modifications and setbacks as they are listed in the code, which is something that we can do with a development agreement. So based on, let me go back to this, this site plan here, but on the south side of the property here, this would be 30 feet. And there's actually, I think it's Hates Creek that runs right down south of this property. So there's a 30-foot easement that exists as part of that creek protection. And so there's an additional buffer between also these townhomes of the 30 feet and then that creek. Let me go back to the setbacks. So side setbacks from the internal roads are intended to be 10 feet. I skipped that first bullet point, but the rear setbacks would be a minimum of 20 feet. So that would accommodate the parking of vehicles. There's some, depending on the design of the units, they may be 22 feet deep. Front setbacks would be a minimum of 15 feet. And then if we go back to this, you could see, so this is 30 feet. So each townhome would have a front setback of 15 feet for a total of 30 between those. And then these are all rear loading garages. So the front of the townhome, would be here, and all of these driveways would be the rear loading off of these private lanes. They're proposing setbacks between the two buildings be a total of 10 feet, and the setbacks for the south property line, as I mentioned, would be 30 feet, and then east and west would be a minimum of 10 feet, and setbacks for the north property line would be at least 15 feet. So the RM code has some requirements for open space, and this project is required to provide 32,000. It's broken down here in this matrix as to the number of buildings that they have, 2 units, 3 units, and then the way the code is written, this is how it breaks out as to how much open space is required for each building. So if we have one building with 2 units, right, you have to have, or this is per unit, so you have to have 1,600 square feet for a 2-unit building, and so on. So the applicant has provided, by their calculations, 42,000 square feet of open space, and I will go through, this is just a rendering of what that open space would be, and what they've committed to provide, which, pergola area with benches. I'll go through slides that'll show depictions of this. But a beanbag, kind of a cornhole area, bocce ball. They would like to put an asphalt path around the proximity of the perimeter of the property. And there's a playground area and a grilling area here, as well as a fenced dog park, dog run area. And this is actually something I haven't seen before, but a cute little chalk mural for kids, a hammock area. This is a thing that kids do nowadays, is they go hammocking. It's become a verb. And then some community open space. Mindy thinks it's cute that I said that, especially because I don't have kids. So I'm like, my nieces and nephews, I am the least cool person in the room always, but so here's just some renderings. Like I was saying, we've got this play area, gathering fire pit, grill area. This shows your cornhole and bocce ball. Again, the pergola, and this shows the dog run. Here's where we're going to hammock, everyone. And then this little area here with the chalk for kids, which I think that's great. Housing like this doesn't generally produce a whole lot of large families. When you do have these types of developments, usually you're dealing with younger families and may have some younger kids. This would be a fantastic thing for those. And often is the case, I may actually call on Councilmember Hunt to help me remember this, but when the school district looks to calculate how much housing they need to, or how much school kids, certain types of housing produces, they look to this type of development, whether it's townhomes or apartments, it's much less of an impact to the schools. So I think it was a difference of like, I'm totally putting you on the spot, Councilmember Hunt, my apologies, but I think it was like 1.2 kids for each single family, but a much lesser number for this type of housing. So these are some renderings of what they're proposing the townhomes to look like. The applicant is also requesting additional height. The height limitations in our residential zones are at 30 feet, but to accommodate 3 stories, they were requesting 33 feet. The development agreement does specify the definition in our zoning code and how we measure that height, which we basically measure from the grade to the middle of the highest peak. So it's an average of that. So a residential home may actually be from grade to peak taller than 30 feet, but that's just how we measure that. So the applicant was requesting for an additional 3 feet with this project. And again, that is something that we can specify with the development agreement. allowing those standards to be approved if the city council chooses to do that. So here's just a few more renderings of what the townhomes are proposed to be like, or what they're proposed to look like, and then this is your left and right elevation as well. So we are recommending approval to this with the development agreement. That primarily comes from the support that that first component of the general plan of the future land use map does not match this. However, with the moderate income housing requirements and that weightier issue that the city has to report back to the state on, we are recommending approval of this rezone from the RA to RM multiple family residential with the PRD overlay. So happy to answer any questions the commission may have at this point.
I'm sure we'll come up with some eventually, if we don't have any now. Would you like to add anything to the report, Mr. Holland?
Yeah, thank you. Phil Holland again. Maybe, I don't know who's running the slides. Is somebody running the slides? So kind of the general area. I didn't want to do this, but if you can go out. I've been around a long time. Yeah, maybe out one bit more. So I've been developing in the city of Kaysville and Farmington for almost 25 years. I hate saying that. That's a long time. I have seen a lot take place in these two cities. And if you guys have lived here for, that long, you've seen a lot as well, even in the last 4 or 5 years. Davis County, now I'm going to add to our traffic problem, but I'm going to talk about that. Davis County says that 65% of its growth in the next 10 years will take place above Burke Lane. It's hard because we're a population that is it's been bursting for years. We lead the nation in household size. We have tremendous outward growth that is coming in. And housing is almost unattainable at this point. And so what do? And I came out here because I wanted you to know that I have personally been involved in this development, this development, this development, this development, and many other ones that I have in West Kaysville. Land use is, certainly that's my job, that's my career. I'm trying to make a living by providing housing for people in our cities. And a lot of times, people have their tastes and maybe they wouldn't want to live in a townhome. Down on Burke Lane, I am building a 50-foot tall apartment building. And the density there is 30 units per acre. The reality is, because of the nature of our growth and our lack of availability of land, this site I should be asking for 50 units an acre. I'm very, very well aware, living up here, that that you can't shop at Harmon's or you can't shop at Smith's if people see you. What I am trying to introduce with this application is 14 units an acre. RM allows up to 16. We've also shown, just pointing out a couple of things that have already been talked about, I'm providing 20% more open space than what the RM zone allows or requires. Parking, can you go to the site plan now? The one that's shows the amenity package. Yeah, there's a lot. there's a lot of amenities. I don't know of a Farmington or Kaysville development that's specific to a townhome use like this that has this variety of amenities. Endeavor Elementary has seen a decrease in attendance of 25% over the last 5 years, as does the school that I live next to, Snowhorse. And the reason is that we have not provided enough sufficient housing for a diverse group to live in an area. Now, are 56 units going to be able to say, yeah, this we've done it? No. But I think if you look at what I'm trying to provide, it is not trying to max out this site. It is trying to give future owners the ability to not mow a yard. I got to mow my yard every day, every week. I don't like doing that. When I was 28, I lived in a townhome with my family. It's just part of it. So we are super proud of the things that we are providing on this site. A couple other things. This is important to us, a 2-car garage with a ability of 2 more cars being parked in that driveway. That is 4 cars per house. Do you know what Farmington City required me? I'm not throwing them under the bus. I love that city. They require 1.82 stalls per unit. So I'm not trying to get brownie points. I want to say that this is not a dense project. We're proud of it. I'll drive by this for the next 35, 40 years, hopefully 50. And you'll see me in the community, and this is something that we want to be proud of. Owner-occupied, maintained by the community. Some might ask, are they the hammock area? What happens if they start to deteriorate? That will be contained by and governed by itself in a homeowners association. Just a couple of things I wanted to point out. I do want to talk about, we've talked a lot about traffic. This is all in the traffic report. The general plan back in 2022 was amazing. Kaysville City did not have something like that in its entire history. One of the things that, no, not even close. We were winging it. And that is not taking anything away from the prior, we did our best. In 2022, it came around and we became intelligent about how we're doing our city. One of those things is on arterial roads, that's where we need to have our density. This is the perfect spot. Absolutely perfect spot. For a bunch of reasons I've already said, and you guys have been to more public hearings than I have recently, but when a community comes in and you have, an infill development that's trying to get an RM zone, those residents will chase them out of their group. The beauty of this, I hate for you to go back to the aerial, jeez. Yeah, I know. One of the reasons that this couldn't be developed, but let's just say if somebody was asking for an RM zone here, they might have to travel through a couple of neighborhoods to get here. These homeowners pass through, they come down here, they might come up 950. They are staying on arterial roads. If they go to Centennial Junior High, they pass through Sunset. Now we know all this because we travel these roads on a regular basis. So we keep these RM zones, these diverse housing units close to arterial roads, which 950. This is the perfect spot for it. I appreciate the time.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Sir, I just had a quick question. And I know this is probably not something you've delved into yet in the process, but it's something you might have thought of. Storm drainage runoff. I'm not seeing, you have excellent open space, but I'm not seeing anywhere for storm drainage. Do you have a thoughts on how that might be handled?
Yes, we've done some preliminary engineering. The lowest spot on the site is right here, which will impact some of that commercial, but a lot of that could be underground detention.
Okay.
There is two large outfalls from Farmington City that come under here. Somebody mentioned the environmental aspect. We will have to have an orifice plate. We will take care of that stormwater. So yeah, we tried to, normally you see a detention basin inside of the community.
Right.
We've tucked it into the corner where we think that's better for the community. Did that answer your question?
Yes. I think that's why having a larger plan of the area might be helpful for us. I mean, even like Commissioner Allred was saying, is how, sort of almost even a bubble diagram, but, some boxes of how things might lay out, how the traffic flow inside that development might look.
For sure.
And again, that storm drainage area.
Yep, I think I agreed with your continuing that other one. I could provide and articulate, although it might be multiple plans.
Right.
Because we don't know what we're doing there.
Even better.
Wendy's might come and say, we want to be right there.
Wendy.
We don't know, but I could for sure articulate that on the commercial side of things.
Mr. Chairman, also a question for Mr. Holland. I noticed that Road A kind of juts out of the rectangle. Have you done that to line up with Divide Drive?
Yeah. Is that that main road? And that is that's going to be a city street.
That would be dedicated, that's
Yeah. Yep. Dedicated city right-of-way that lines right up with Divide Drive.
Okay, that was my question.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. We will move to the public hearing portion of this agenda item. So same as we did before, we will open this up for anyone in the public who would like to come forward and make any comments or questions.
Spencer Brown. I appreciate the density, the layout, the parking. Again, looking at that screen, it disappeared. Yeah. See, my house has that nice blue dot right across 950. That's a suite above ground pool. You didn't include pool, but they're welcome over. I would approve it. I think it's a great use of the space. I don't think you're going to get any development on this space that doesn't marry some type of residential with some kind of commercial based on what's reality. The traffic's a concern. The reality is, no matter what gets developed there, it's not going to make a difference. 950 North is going to be very busy. It's not going to make a difference. I think it's well thought out. I appreciate that the townhomes have driveways. I think the developer did a good job.
Thank you.
David Stringfellow, Farmington resident. I won't give you my stats or the numbers specifically this time, but oh, good. Good, you can track me down. I do want to avoid the typical NIMBYism, and I hope my neighbors don't crucify me later for this, but I appreciated the plan and the presentation and the number of units. We've gone dozens of meetings with Farmington City. If you zoom this picture out just a little bit, the numbers that I'm hearing for like number of units in this space that's abutting the DNRG trail, and you can already see a lot of the build down on Burke Lane, but something like 4,000 housing units are contemplated in this grand area. My worry is that, and we did this a lot with Farmington, was trying to ease from these large residential units into more higher density units, and height was a significant concern. I think some of my neighbors' concerns are this 30, 40 foot, smallish townhome development right there. I think if you could if you could segment this and have a lower height by those homes in the northeastern corner so that maybe they're the smaller square footprint, and I don't know how detailed you can get. In a bigger area, we kind of tranched it. The stuff near the trail had to be 10 feet lower, and it could be a little higher as you progress towards the mountains. We worked on that with Farmington City, trying to get those heights right to work around the area. I'd suggest that might alleviate some concerns about suddenly these really tall buildings right next to the home right there. I don't know what the height is of that home. I could imagine my daughter, who's a junior studying engineering, buying one of these homes. That'd be great, right? She can live 100 yards from our house as a starter home, kind of a deal. But I do worry that that it's out of character of the nature of this area. And if mixed use is contemplated, I lived in Europe, there's a lot of beautiful little compartmentalized areas where you have storefront around this edge, and then you have some homes on the interior. I just don't know why the site plan has to be divided into industrial and residential and get this moving really quickly. I'd suggest, if you're thinking big and interesting ways about this, I would suggest a better mixed use combo of these kinds of things would fit with the neighborhood better. But that's just me. I don't know what the market would bear.
Bart Peterson. I live right on the corner there, 950, north of the church, right there, directly impacted, right? A couple of concerns. We've already discussed traffic. No matter what, it's going to be an issue. With all the development that's going on, including the development by the applicant with the 4 and 3-story townhomes less than a mile away. This is going to directly impact my property value. Having a 33-foot neighbor next to me, that is going to be a watchtower right into my yard. When I bought this property, looked at the zoning, looked at your land use, nowhere did it state any of this stuff. I mean, we're cherry picking some, hey, it would be great here, it would be great there. But by no means is this going to be affordable housing either. If you look at the townhomes that are being sold, upwards 600, 700,000. So, you know, the junior in college, while it might be a great goal, is not going to afford that, right? So this grandiose, you know, look at me, I'm doing something great for the community, doesn't hit home with those price points. It just doesn't. And again, you know, I just go back to when we built there, we looked at all the planning around. We knew the road was going to be there, knew the highway was going to be there, there's going to be traffic. Okay, we can deal with that. But I can't deal with a 33-foot building feet from my property. I mean, I implore you guys to put yourself in my shoes and just think about that. Why can't we put homes in there? There are developers that will put single-family homes at that price point. Why can't we do that in that neighborhood? Keep it the way, you know, the surrounding area is. That's, I just hope you take into consideration all the comments you get online and here today, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Again, Michael Baker. I'm a neighbor of Bart's, and the question I have for the developer, you were eloquent about your love for Farmington and Kaysville and wanting to develop, and this is a perfect location, but the location's not next to you, sir. The location isn't next to your quiet neighborhood. Your location is not next to I mean, we don't want you, Kaysville, don't be like Farmington and build every townhouse you could possibly think of. And the amount that the lady over here was talking about, that the state or whoever is as the governing entity that she was referencing about having to have a certain amount of affordable homes, I would love to know, this is the only location. I mean, it just doesn't even fit in this location. It doesn't fit aesthetically. It doesn't fit with what's already there. It just seems so out of place. And it's interesting that the location is carved out of, I mean, that is a small little piece of Farmington that, of Kaysville apparently, that doesn't even fit with the rest of the area. I don't see anywhere else that in this immediate area of Kaysville where you've got the same level of, you've got single family dwellings, but not people right next to them with the townhouse. So I totally agree with Bart that when we built here, this wasn't at all something that we saw that was going to happen as well. And we knew all about West Davis Corridor. We went to that with our eyes wide open. We fought to try and have it be as minimal as possible. We love where we're at, and I'm just right on Pheasant Place. I'm literally 3 houses away from Bart there. And I would ask the same thing to consider if there's something, if you need the tax revenue, I'm assuming that has a lot to do with it. Whatever box you're trying to check on affordable housing, do it in single family dwellings, not necessarily the way that this is proposed.
Thank you.
Okay. Marvin Hill. I just live across the street. I just feel like that these big, tall townhomes are just going to detract from our neighborhood. And even though they've got 12 extra spaces and they've got driveways and all that for traffic, I understand what you're saying about when you park cars on the road, it's going to slow the traffic down. But I think about snow removal, and I think about people trying to use the trail there and everything. It's already hard for me to use that bike trail just to get across the road because there's no stoplights there. There's one stop sign, but there's no stoplights there. And without stoplights and a way to control the traffic right in that area, you put 56 homes there, and it's just going to multiply by 56 or 120, whatever. And what I'm saying, I just feel like it's already congested a little bit because all the development that Farmington's doing up above that, all that traffic, some of that traffic is going to be coming down this road, and now we've got another 56 houses in a really small little confined area. Plus they're going to be 3 stories high. It's going to detract from our neighborhood. It's going to just put too many people on that road, and to me it's already dangerous the way it is, and I just feel like it's not a good use of that land. Thank you.
Thank you.
David Jensen, Farmington, kind of over by David Stringfellow in the general vicinity. I've been sitting here listening to all of the comments, and I've tried to sit back and think, what additional commentary could I add? Certainly second all of the concerns that have been expressed about that type of housing development going in right there. And so I think the question I would pose, and it's a rhetorical question, something for the Planning Commission to consider, is once that's built, and if you drive past it, can you honestly look at it and say, that was planned with intention? That 30-foot, 33-foot, 56-unit housing development right in the corner of a lot of single-family homes, does that look intentional? Does it look like smart city planning? Does it look like something that came along, the first developer who came along, who acquired the property, and that was the first thing that they could do to turn it around and turn the highest profit? Or does it look like it fits in with a broader plan that the city might propose to meet some of those more moderate housing income needs, or moderate income housing needs? If you were looking at the broader city map of Kaysville, would you say, oh, hey, that makes sense, let's just plug a high-rise multi-housing unit development right there in that corner? Would you do that? Or would you maybe consider other areas where it seems to make more sense, seems to flow with the community, seems to mesh with the community? You know, right down the street, we're going to be getting a lot of that. And so having that development as the sentinel right after you get off of the freeway, mixed with a bunch of single-family homes, it just does not seem like intelligent planning and flow of a community. And certainly the surrounding community members, I think, have legitimate concerns about the size and nature of the development there. So does it fit? Does it make sense? And 20 years from now when you drive by it and you go, yeah, that doesn't really look like that was maybe the wisest decision. What will your thoughts be then? So thanks.
Thank you.
Kim Anderson, again, I don't really have anything additional to add, honestly. It's more kind of, if there is a count, I am opposed. And it is for the reasons that were already stated. I've been here, it's almost 20 years, and it definitely is not the vibe, you know, of the neighborhood that I bought into. I love the idea if it could be single-family homes, if we could continue what we already have there. I do feel it would decrease our property values. And I am familiar with the affordable housing issue and the mandates for cities to provide affordable housing, but I agree, as I look at brand new townhomes, and if it is going to be as nice as the plan looks, it's not going to be affordable housing, so I don't know that that would fit the need. So if it is an option to do single-family housing, I would love that, but thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else that would like to make a comment?
My name's Brady Burt, and I live just in Rifleman Drive. I used to also be on the HOA board with some of the other people that are here and past board members. I would really like to live in Malibu, but I can't afford Malibu, so I don't live there. I'd love to live in Hawaii too, but I don't live there either. I live in a place that is affordable, and I live in a place that's beautiful around me, both on the north, the east, and the south side. I think it would be a deterrent to our neighborhood, especially since it would be touching our neighborhood and our HOA properties. And I think that it should be looked at in a different way. If there is something that's going to be changed, why can't it be something that matches and mirrors what's around it? The way it's zoned currently aims to protect the agricultural land while allowing for limited residential growth, and that's the way it's proposed currently. I like that feeling. It matches the other parts of our neighborhood. Farmington City in our neighborhood has made sure that we kept open spaces. If you see to the farther part of the east side of our neighborhood, it's got all this beautiful open space. There's some down each part of the neighborhood. We put in a nice park in our neighborhood to help with that. And it seems like we're taking away from everything that we've tried to preserve to try to put something in this piece that doesn't quite fit. So I would ask the board that maybe they look around and see if it actually matches and mirrors what's actually there, and maybe have some more consideration for the people that live there, the home properties, the safety of the children that do use that section quite a bit, and maybe make a more positive impact to that neighborhood that surrounds it versus just looking at the piece that's proposed. And that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amy Burt. I'll just add my voice to it. I am opposed to the townhome situation. I'm not opposed to development. I think development is a good idea, and growth obviously happens. But I think the 33-foot is extreme. Why couldn't it just be a 2-story, or, you know, something like everyone else was saying, a single family homes would be a better fit. So maybe just have the builder or developer just rethink their plan and how it would fit better. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Now, seeing none, we will close the public hearing part of this discussion. And open up to the commission for discussion and questions or...
Mr. Chairman, I'm sure you're shocked I have comments. I doubt there's anybody in this room that's lived in this neighborhood longer than I have. This will be my I'm going on 29 years. Who? No. I'm way before David. No, I remember you guys. You didn't live in this area, you lived over in that area. Anyway, try not to editorialize too much. I'll try to make this very, very brief. As somebody who's been there and been terrified every time there was an iteration for Legacy and then West Davis, I went to hearings on Legacy before I bought my building lot, after I bought my building lot. There were so many iterations of where Legacy was going to go that we got very discouraged. We actually met with UDOT and started negotiations on them buying our home. We had just moved in. And they were telling us they would make us whole. And we said, well, how can we replace our neighbors? How are you going to, you can buy my property, but how are you going to buy my wonderful neighbors that we all built at the same time? My wife and I, we built our own home. We were the contractors. We went through hell to get our home built. And then to just immediately see our little street become ground zero for every possible development that would just destroy it. Now, we survived. And we have welcomed every single neighbor who's come to our neighborhood. We welcomed Quail Crossing. They wanted to put a chapel in our backyard. And I said, I'm LDS, it's fine, but that's not the best place for the chapel. We said, why don't you put it in the middle of the neighborhood and not waste that acreage? There's a bunch of acres sitting there that's not even used. I tried everything. I've been to so many hearings in Kaysville City, and most of the time I got nothing but a cold shoulder from the city back in the day. And I'm a city planner by trade. So I will just say this, after having been through probably well over 2,000 public meetings like this, working for cities, I can say this for sure. Number one, by and large, almost every single time, I have never, ever, ever gone back to a place where development was proposed where the impacts that were perceived that were going to come came true. Never. I've gone back as a city planner, I've gone to those neighborhoods, people didn't move, they didn't leave, their kids didn't get killed, didn't get run over, the schools didn't get overcrowded. I know for a fact, having worked with school district after school district, this won't have a negative impact on the school. It won't. People living in these do not have the number of kids that homes do, as was mentioned earlier. This will not have a negative impact on traffic. It won't. It won't. Commercial, the commercial that's going to be built next door to this will produce far much more traffic than all of the residential combined in all likelihood. Residential units like this produce about 8 trips per day, 8 to 9 car trips per day, but that commercial will have an enormous amount of traffic. I sit on a special governor's committee right now on housing. I had a meeting today with the housing coordinator, and it's got some of the most distinguished thinkers and leaders on housing and economics in the state. I will tell you this, the housing crisis that we have is far worse than any of us realize. If you think it's bad, double and triple your concerns. We have somewhere in the neighborhood of 40,000 families that can't find a place to live. We have some of the least affordable housing in the United States. We're probably third, I think we're third most expensive based on our income in the entire country. We used to be way down here. When I bought my first home in '89, housing was cheap. Interest rates were 10%, okay? But the houses were cheap. Paid $65,000 for my first house. That house is now $600,000, okay? This housing is desperately needed. Kaysville has a particular problem that Melinda, our planning director, has spoken about. We as a city are one of the most exclusive cities in Utah. We don't allow anybody but single families to live here. We hardly have any multiple family housing. Okay? Farmington, which most of you guys live in, well, you know, I'm sorry, you guys, they're building all of the impact on Kaysville. Kaysville hasn't done that to Farmington, and not to start a battle here, but the problem is in the community that most of you live in. It's not in Kaysville, but Kaysville has a problem because politically, we turn these down decade after decade. We turn down anything but single family housing. What are we supposed to do as a city when the state says you are required to not only have a plan for moderate income housing, but then we don't comply decade after decade? What do? There's ground left. It's right here. Access to the freeway. It's an ideal use. It's an ideal use. I live in this neighborhood. I've seen all the changes, okay? I've seen every impact. All you guys moved in next to me. When I moved out here, there was nothing around me, nothing. Nothing behind me but a church farm, and nothing in front of me but wetlands that they said would never be built on. Every one of those things that I checked out as a city planner. I went to Farmington, I went to UDOT, I went to Kaysville. I looked at every plan, I looked high and low to see what my potential impacts were going to be. And they were pretty much zero. And within 2 years of buying my lot, it all changed. We are not an island. We cannot continue to deny the people who are here now and those that are coming an opportunity to buy something less affordable, you know, that's less expensive than $800,000 or $900,000. I'll bet you most of our home, I don't even know what my home's worth. I'll bet you it's in the neighborhood of $800,000 or $900,000. I live in a 4,200 square foot house on a half acre. In West Kaysville, that's probably worth, I don't know. Somebody could tell me what it is. But when kids, college graduates, people with high degrees, people who are highly educated can't get into a home and won't be able to for a long time to come, we have a serious problem. We have an obligation as a city to do our part, and we haven't done our part. So, like it or not, we're stuck between a rock and a hard place. So I would love to see single-family homes there. I'd love to see all the fields that were there when I moved in back. I'd love to see the cows reaching through the fence to eat my grass. I would love that. I would love the 8 years when my road was a dead end and my kids could just play anywhere they wanted to. But that's not the reality that we live in, and it's going to get worse if we don't act. I think the city has a firm obligation here to do something, and this meets our general plan. The zoning is fine, and the density is far less than it actually could be. So I know that's not what you guys want to hear, but as a planning commissioner, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that 14 units an acre is inappropriate in any way, shape, or form. He's right. The developer's right. In other cities, you could be doing 50 or 60 units an acre, and that might make a dent. In fact, the higher the density that could be allowed here would allow for more affordability.
He can drop that price, he can build smaller units. These won't be that affordable, but they'll still be more affordable than the big single-family homes that we all live in. In my opinion, the height here is too low. Our single-family homes, my single-family home in my neighborhood can be 35 feet. How is it that a single-family home can be as tall as a condominium or a townhome? Okay, I've got a home behind me that's 35 feet to the middle of the roof. If they'd gone up another story, which they would have been allowed to, it'd be over 40 feet. And we're saying a 3-story dwelling has to have 8-foot ceilings, 9-foot ceilings. He's going to have a hard time getting the kind of roof space that buyers want today. They don't want 8-foot ceilings. I've done this. I've dealt with this. If you go to downtown Holiday, we built condominiums down there, and they have 9-foot ceilings. They have a 1.5-foot span between floors, and they have a flat roof because that additional layer of dwellings on the top floor allowed them to get the density that's appropriate and allowed for the project to work because the ground was over $1 million an acre. The height is not fun. I know we have you guys that live next door to it. My heart goes out to you, but I don't think that that's a justification to tell this city to reduce density or to make a bad housing design that's going to be worth less money in the future going forward because the ceilings are too low. Think about the ramifications. It complies with the general plan. The traffic is not an impact. I said this before, the commercial will produce a lot more traffic. My only concern here really is, and I don't think it's an afterthought here, multiple family is built against freeways and arterials and intersections all the time. This is not out of place. It's just not where most of us are used to it. We don't want it there because we want something else. Well, we haven't provided a ton of options. We don't have a zone for garden patio lots at 2,500 or 3,000 square feet for little small cottage homes. He could get 2/3 of the density, but this is being fought left and right. In fact, just south of where you're at, we had somebody last year come in and it got fought tooth and nail because they wanted to build small garden patio homes. Well, we don't allow it. So the city is stuck. Developers actually, I think developers it's not ideal for them. I wish we had more density here. It would help more people out. If any of us didn't have a place to live and we were in our parents' basement or an aunt and uncle's basement, double bunking somewhere, think about it. We got to think about people who are coming. Planning is about thinking out there, not today. It's about 5-10 years from now. This pales in comparison to the density you've got a half mile up the road in Farmington. Farmington is swamping all of us with massive density. I don't have a say in what they're doing over there. I don't. But in Kaysville, as a planning commissioner, I do have a say on the planning commission, and I'm going to recommend approval of this rezone for those reasons. And the concerns that I have about it aren't things that the zoning controls. I'd like to see a little bit higher quality building, better building materials, more color. Those are my negative comments, but I think I've laid out a good reason for us to recommend approval, and that's what I'm going to vote if I have a choice.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just to kind of lay some of my thoughts out, we are all citizens of Kaysville. We live here. I live here, work here, and I don't drive past a piece of property anymore without looking at it and thinking, what could go there? And I always think, RM, what's the most dense? Like, would I be okay if that were to come up in the next planning commission meeting? And that includes properties very close to me. And I mean, you think and it spins around in your head all the time. And so even though it's not my house backing up to this, I feel like the same thoughts go through my mind. Yeah, the height, I get it. But yeah, all of our residential allow basically that same height. Most of those houses, of course, are 2-story houses, and a lot of the height is in the roof. And that's a little different to have a 3rd story. In looking at this, I went around Kaysville mentally, mostly, and tried to count up the buildings that are 3-story buildings in Kaysville, and I came up with 14. And I might be missing a few, and I'm not counting the mill. But they're all townhome type buildings, and they don't really stick out as much, as you think it will. My thoughts in thinking, okay, put that there, those that are there, what's next to them. And I was surprised how much I would drive past those buildings without thinking of them as being a huge variation when they're surrounded by single-family homes. I did think, that with the future land use plan, the map. At first, I was thinking, well, that'd be sad to lose commercial if we were to change it to commercial because we have so little commercial. But overall, this project to me makes a lot of sense. Looking all over at Kaysville, where would I put this? If we're mandated and we had to put it somewhere, nowhere is going to fit the perfect definition because everywhere there's a neighbor and it's a single family or it's something, and things can go next to each other. That's kind of what I've come to understand as I've done a lot of this. It's on like was already been said, it's on an arterial road, which it means it's not going to direct traffic directly through pre-existing neighborhoods. It's very close to 2 freeway entrances. 950 is just over a mile long between I-15 and the West Davis corridor. And that's where you put the higher density. And this really isn't high density. I see the buildings that are going in Layton by the freeway, and they're six stories. And that's not going to happen in Kaysville, I don't think, right? This is it. This is the ceiling for what we allow, really, at this point. My feelings lean the way that yours do, Commissioner. While never a perfect fit, there's a lot of boxes that are checked with this project. And that's where I'm leaning right now.
Melinda, can I ask what the building height is for residential usually? Is it still the 30 feet?
It's, so we have 2 building heights allowed in Kaysville, 35 feet for all our commercial zones and 30 feet for all our residential zones.
Yeah. So I know that I live in the older part of Kaysville, and you think about, you get a flag lot behind you, and they build that building, that house. They want to have a basement, so their first story starts 5 feet out of the ground, and then they put up 2 stories, and they're now looking directly in my backyard. I get that. I have that, so I get what you're saying. But at the same time, that can happen to any lot with the building height. And even if we said that you couldn't go past the 30 feet, he'd just put in a flat roof instead of a peaked roof to then reach the same height.
Yeah.
So the building height, to me, 3 stories isn't really come across as high rise to me, just because that 30-foot height is what most 2-story homes are today with their roofs. Just because the townhome isn't as wide as most 2-story homes, and so to get the peak on them, you're actually up usually about 30 feet. So, and the setbacks are the same generally for residential versus this particular more high density residential area. So if it was a single-family home going in there, they could still do smaller lots. They didn't have to do large lots. They could still build something the same size at the same distance away. So that, to me, doesn't really have be unique to this project. So I lean more towards, again, I also view this as when this whole West Corridor thing was going in, I kept asking where the potential commercial was going to go, because you just start looking at it, you're like, that is going to happen. These are like prime commercial lots. It's just with the way development works, that those developers are going to see those locations as space for that traffic moving by and potential customers coming in, that's a great location for that. And being is that the commercial idea, I also agree with our chair that even though this was sort of, the general plan was commercial in this area, I do believe that the residential is still a good fit for the spot, so.
And I would add that our city council, they're not, like, just build, build, build. They're very careful with what they look at, and
yeah.
Of course, you'll never agree with every decision they make, but it's not, we just pass on a recommendation, and they will have to look at that and make the ultimate decision. And
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I won't burden, well, I have some additional thoughts or comments, some that agree and some that disagree with the public comments tonight. I move, we recommend to the City Council a rezone for 16 East 950 North, parcel 08065-079 from RA to RM with a PRUD zone overlay.
I'll second.
so we have a recommendation, we have a motion for a recommendation for approval to the City Council. Discussion on that motion.
I would just say I really appreciate the comments from all of the planning commissioners. This is not easy. Not easy. These aren't easy. It's even harder when it's in your neighborhood. And I feel for everybody who has to live anywhere near something they don't want, but
All right, should we call the question?
Please.
Will you begin the voting?
Aye.
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 Aye. So the motion is passed. This will go to recommendation for approval to the City Council. Do we have any idea how soon that might go before them?
I was actually wondering if Mr. Holland would prefer to come to one city council meeting versus two. I can get this on May 8th if you want, or sorry, it would be not May 8th. It would be May 15th. Or we can wait until the LI gets through Planning Commission and do them both on the same night. What's your preference?
I think we should come back with the LI just so we're going with one.
Okay, so in that case, probably the agenda it would end up on would be May 20, nope, it would be June 4th, June 5th. Well, no, we would bring the LI back on May 8th. And then the next city council meeting would be June 5th. my husband's birthday. And good luck. I'm just kidding. So look for that then on the LI to bring back on May 8th, and then both of these to be on the City Council agenda for June 5th. How are we talking about June?
Okay. We
Okay,
have-
so a quick point of order. If we are going to extend past 10 PM, we would need a motion to do so. But I think we can finish the rest of the business before that.
Exactly.
You don't want to watch us approve minutes?
Exactly what I was thinking, yeah. I think if we,
And in fact, we may have the same issue with the next two agenda items. I don't know who was at the March 13th meeting.
I wasn't here.
Okay, so it looks like we don't have enough.
continue that one again.
I wasn't for the 27th, so.
Okay.
Are my minutes not good enough for you guys? What the heck?
In that case, if you would like to motion to move them to our next agenda, we can do that for items 6 and 7.
I'll motion that we move the minutes as recommended by staff to the next available planning commission meeting, May 8th, if not sooner.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Other matters?
It's going to be on May 8th.
I will be here.
Oh, I should be here.
Okay. I will make this quick, as I said. So we did have our open house on Tuesday night, and I would say it was a decent attendance.
Sorry, I wasn't able. I have a
That's
new granddaughter.
Congratulations.
Watching ones while mom had
Well,
them.
okay.
Yep.
Well, congratulations. That was,
Thank you.
I think, probably a better way to spend the
Yeah.
evening. So we did have some good attendance. I don't have numbers from the consultant yet, but I would estimate about 50 or 60 people came, which I would think is a great turnout. We had a couple of younger families come as well, which I was happy to see that there was some different age groups represented there.
Yeah.
The consultant did report on Tuesday night. They had 124 people fill out the survey, which I thought was excellent. I'm very impressed with that. So now that we have the open house done, we're going to start messaging to get people to the website to fill out that survey. So I sent it out to all of our city staff earlier this week. A lot of us live here. A lot of us don't. But as city employees, right, they have some unique insight into areas of the community. So we're going to put out a blurb in the city's newsletter that comes out on the 1st of the month to hopefully drive more traffic and get more survey responses. And I think that's kind of the bulk of that for the small area plan at this point. The survey, I think, will be open through the middle of May. And so we're going to continue to drive people to get that feedback. There's also on the project website, if you haven't been there yet, have I sent that to you all? I will do that tomorrow. There is an area where you can look at the map and leave kind of sticky notes on the map. You can leave, there's like kind of a thumbs up, thumbs down, or I like it, I don't like it. There's a way to have, it's kind of more of like just an open page where you could add any comments just in general about anything. I mean, maybe let's keep it to the small area plan scope, but the kind of platform that the consultant's using for this is pretty unique and interactive. So
Who was our consultant?
GSBS.
Oh, okay.
Kimberly Horn is the transportation
Oh, yeah.
consultant. We have Catalyst, who's doing the economics.
Kevin Horn, the architect?
Kimberly Horn.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Kimberly Horn is a transportation
Consultant, yeah.
consultant. And then I'm not sure what firm he's with, but Travis is the architect that's kind of looking at the historical stuff. So
Okay.
we've got a great team. It's been honestly, as Commissioner Allred was specifically understand, there is a lot of work to kick this off, a lot of data mining, putting stuff together. So I'm glad that kind of that phase of this is over. That's pretty intensive for staff. And now we're just trying to get that feedback from the public.
Hey, question. I wasn't able to come, and I apologize. Is the information from the open house available in PDF form? Is it on our website that I can go review it?
I'll send out the link to the project website.
Okay.
So the consultant hasn't compiled anything. Any of the comments that we do get and come in will end up in an appendices.
Okay.
So like I said, we had some great attendance. I didn't speak with all the people that came, but there was a good amount of people. I know that we had 3 or 4 of our council members here, and they had some great conversations. We just really, what we want to know is what our business owners, our property owners, and our residents want to see.
Yeah. If I wanted to come by and just look at the graphic displays, do you have them?
I think the consultant took them with them.
Okay, never mind. You know what I'm getting at. I'd love to comment or look at the stuff and put my sticky note on there.
Send out, I think somewhere I have a PDF of the boards, don't we, Ann? I could send that out to the
I
planning
don't
commission.
think Liz has sent us the photos she took. I know she took photos. I don't think she sent those to us.
But
no, I don't think she sent those.
If we could get those, I'd love to just, on PDF, just be able to fill out a little, tile on there and comment.
Well, that's what you can do on the website.
Yeah, from the website.
Yeah, she was saying.
You
put like sticky notes?
Yeah, electronically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to be able to do. But I'm in no rush, just love to just know where and when, because I feel so guilty about not being there.
Okay, let me actually be
Kind
really
of.
smart about this, and we'll just pull it up
On
here.
the planning commission.
We're going to go past 10.
I know.
Yeah, 1 minute.
Do we need to make a motion?
I think we're done, right?
For any further business, but adjournment.
I didn't
We can
ask
do
that
this
question. Motion to adjourn?
Do I need a second
Oh.
and adjourn?
No. We can just adjourn.
We are adjourned.
May I ask really quick though, if you guys wouldn't mind helping me holding chairs out? We've got a meeting here at 8 in the morning.
Yeah.
I'll pull the tables out if you guys could just help me. Do you guys have a second? If not, if you want to go.
Here we go with the add-ons.
Many hands make light work.
Yep.
What are you doing here? Oh, yeah, I got to do my job.
Thank you.
David, hey, tell your parents hello. Sorry? Tell your parents hello.
Will do.